Okay, fine. I'm saying we are talking about behavior change. Two types of behaviors: good behavior and bad behavior. And the one which is supposed to be changed is bad behavior. Because if you're engaged with it or to it, it reaches a certain time whereby you become addicted. That bad behavior becomes addiction. And the moment you are addicted, then it's very dangerous. Bad behavior needs to be changed. So, in this scenario, there are about 5, if not 6, approaches to such kind of problems. Once you want to deal with these problems, there are about 5 approaches which can be used. I did mention about psychoanalytical therapy. There is also the second one, which is known as trans-theoretical model. In short, we call it TTM. There is motivational interviewing, which is also known as MI, abbreviated as MI. Very shortly, we'll be talking about narrative approach or therapy. Very shortly, we'll be talking about narrative approach or therapy and also solution-focused approach or therapy. All these therapies, they are also known as talk therapy, because much of the activities which take place during the process of trying to intervene in any kind of the problem, whether a patient is having a problem with smoking or alcoholism, prostitution, stealing, etc., etc. Much of the activity which is going to take place is about talking. That's counseling. And it involves between 2 or more people. On the one end, there is a sender who is also known or considered to be a social worker or service provider. And on the other end is the receiver, who is also known as the service user or the client. There must be a feedback. Where there is a conversation between 2 or more people, you are expecting to receive or to have the feedback, or which is also known as the response. So, on the motivational interviewing, MI, what kind of interviewing is this supposed to take place? It's an interview between either 2 or more people. It depends how many clients do you have. Whether it's one client, then the conversation will be between the service provider and the client or the patient. If the patients are more than 1, it means it's between the service provider and the client or service users. Now, I've said about the interview. And this kind of interview is supposed to be the one which is going to motivate the patient or the patients. Patients are supposed to be motivated. They're supposed to be empowered. You are trying to empower the patient. He's in low spirits. He's expecting some help to be given by the service provider. Because the situation where this particular patient is in is, we can call him or her as ambivalent. Ambivalent, chikoza kunena kuti, is trying to make up his mind whether to stop smoking or to continue smoking. Huyu alipa crossroads. He doesn't or she doesn't know what to do. Mbali nayo imena kuika kamera mwina kupeza ma benefits. Kumaya kangana mukumuza kuti asiye. Mbali nayo angona ndima ukaoka. So he's ambivalent. He's ambivalent. So he needs somebody to come in and then convince him beyond reasonable doubt to say, what I'm clinging in or on is indeed very bad and I'm supposed to stop doing it. Let us come here. We define motivational interviewing as a client-centered. It's a client-centered. What is client-centered? What does that mean? Much of the work is being done by who? The client himself. You as a social worker or service provider, your work is just to guide that particular somebody who has a problem. You just guide him or her. But much of the decisions will be made by himself or herself. So, motivation interviewing as a client-centered directive method for promoting or enhancing intrinsic insight, motivation insight. Amenanga chimve ndiye mwini wake. Nkati mwakemo. Chintakasa nkati mwakemo. Muntu huyo amena kwa kamera chintu choipa. So intrinsic motivation to change by exploring and resolving ambivalence. By resolving ambivalence. Alipa crossroads. Sakuziwa kutapile saidi hii kapena saidi hii. So the kind of motivation which is going to be provided to him or to her is going to change that particular situation. Definitely, instead of one leg to be on the other side and the other one on the other one, is going to remove both legs to be on either position A, both legs on position A, or both legs on position B. Soon after, that motivation is going to take place. So this piece of, or these, the pieces of this definition merit some examination. First, motivational interviewing is client-centered, or personal-centered in its focus on the concerns and the perspectives of the individual, as well as in our heavy reliance on and indebtedness to the work of Carl Rogers and his colleagues. Carl Rogers and his colleagues, these were the developers of this motivational interview. Carl Rogers and colleagues were the developers of this model. So in this sense, motivational interviewing is an evolution of the client-centered counseling approach that Rogers developed. Motivational interviews do not focus on teaching new coping skills. It doesn't teach that. Or reshaping cognitions or excavating the past. It is quite focused on the person's present interest and concerns. Anyway, in short, I can say so. It's personal-centered. It's personal-centered. Kind of. In the previous class of the weekend, students, I asked them to come up with advantages of motivational interviewing and the disadvantages of motivational interviewing. So I want you in our next class, come up with those, each one of you. Go find out. When we meet, you present to me. Advantages of motivational interviewing and also disadvantages, benefits or demerits, merits or demerits, advantages or disadvantages of motivational interviewing. That's what you're supposed to come up with. How many students are you? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Be in groups of 3. Be in groups of 3. I want you to go through this. Today we are going to look at Okay, I want you to go through narrative approach versus solution focused approach. I'll tell you what I want you to come up with. I want you people to tell me, how do you understand by narrative approach or therapy as opposed to solution focused approach or therapy? Those people who came up with it, who developed these models or therapies, what were they trying to do? They were intervening in which problems? Why do you think they're important approaches when it comes to using them when trying to deal with that particular problem, which you're going to find out? What are the advantages of using these two approaches when you're trying to deal with those problems? Are they the same or they're different? I want you all to come up with those questions. I need you to summarize. Mumvesese kuti kodi narrative approach komanso solution focused approach kodi zikutanda ma approaches amene wawa akuthandauzanji komanso ntchito yawo ma approaches awawa kapena mapanga deal ni mavuto ake ati ndabwino kapena ndi oyipa komanso kodi ndi ogwirizana kapena ndi osiyana, are they similar or different? What are their similarities or differences? So I want you to summarize from what we'll get from your papers. I wanted you in groups to look at the narrative approach or therapy versus solution focused therapy or approach. These two will tell us what does narrative therapy or approach mean as compared to solution focused approach. So let us listen to our dear friend here from their group. What do they have?
On behalf of my group, I'm here to explain about narrative approach and solution-focused approach in details. Narrative approach, this is a client-centered. This is where a client needs to explain and elaborate his or her story, since the client is the one who knows the problem. Whereas the service user in this approach, he or she takes part in understanding and empathizing and ask open questions to encourage client to reflect on their narratives. We went on with explaining the benefits of narrative approach. One of the benefits is it empowers the client to understand their strengths and weaknesses, as this may help them to overcome their problems in future. It also enhances the service provider to respect the culture of the client. This is seen as the client is explaining about their stories. You can see that there can be cultural differences and stuff, and it helps the service provider to understand consider and understand the client culture. It also helps the client not to fully rely on the service provider. Lastly, it also helps the individual to improve their coping skills, as when the client meets the same problem in future, he or she might be able to solve it and have to deal it on his or her own. We also described the limitations of the narrative approach. One of them is time intensive. Narrative approach eats a lot of time, as it's seen that the client is the one who's explaining their stories. And you can see that some cases, there'll be a client whereby they'll be explaining the story, a big story, instead of just telling us what the main focus is of the story. So this eats up a lot of time. And also, some clients may feel ashamed to give out details of their traumatic events. Me and my group gave out an example of, if you know, there is this other story of men in these stories, whereby there were two brothers who were raped by their father at the age of 6. And yes, by their own father starting at the age of 6. And when those guys were fed up with it, they killed their parents. And then when the social workers were trying to understand what went on, the two brothers didn't feel the courage to explain on how what their father was doing to them. So in this case, some of them may feel ashamed to explain those details. Another one, it may require a service provider to use other therapeutic approaches if the client is not able to tell their stories. And we also describe the areas that deals with narrative approach. So narrative approach deals with issues like trauma, identity, and personal struggles. That was, yes, that was all about narrative approach. And we also described solution focused therapy or approach. Solution focused approach emphasizes on the solutions rather than spending much time on the problems. It is believed that the client has strength and resources that are necessary to solve their own issues. Clients set their own goals regarding to their desired outcomes. In this approach, therapists use questions to help clients access their progress and feelings about the situation. For example, they can ask you about how are you confident about everything, and then you can scale it. For example, the service provider can ask the client on this scale from 1 to 10, how are you confident with this solution and everything. So yes, they can rate from that. They can rate from the scale. The service provider needs to focus more on the client's strengths and abilities rather than their weakness, as this helps the client not to feel belittled when they are spending much time on their weaknesses instead of their strengths. We also went on explaining the benefits of solution focused approach. Solution focused approach, it focuses more on the solutions rather than the problems, as this saves time. It helps clients to achieve their desired goals. It also encourages clients to see vision of their desired future and identify steps to achieve them. Yeah. We also explained the advantages and disadvantages of I mean we also sorry we already I already described the advantages of solution focused approach, but we also explained the disadvantages of approach. Solution focused approach overlooks problems. It focuses on solutions rather than deeply understanding the root causes of problems, which may leave out some unresolved issues. Another disadvantage is solution focused approach. It is a short term focus. This approach emphasizes quick fixes, which might work temporarily but may not lead to long term change. We also went on to look at areas that deals with solution focused approach, and it was relationship problems, goal setting, and stress. Once we are done with explaining details of narrative approach and solution focused approach, we also described the similarities between these two approaches, the narrative approach and the solution focused approach. The similarities of these two approaches is that they are both client-centered approach. As we can see, that is more focused on the client than the service provider. They are both compositive approaches. They both requires a talking stage. They have to explain. Everybody has to take part in They have to conversate. We also describe the differences between the narrative approach and the solution-focused approach. Solution focused approach focuses more on solutions, whilst narrative approach focuses more on the story at hand. Narrative approach focuses on empowering clients, while the solution-focused approach utilizes brief, goal-oriented techniques to help the client identify their strengths and envision their future better. The narrative approach engages with past, while the solution-focused approach focuses on the present and future. Narrative approach, um, in narrative approach, service provider collaborates with clients to explore their stories, whereas therapists in solution-focused approach act as facilitators in guiding clients towards actionable solutions. Thank you.
So that's from Group A. Thank you very much for that work which you have produced, for us. I think if we should start to look into the second group, because of time, will not be in a position to finish it. I don't know if you have some comments on this group, to comment on this group. Do you have some comments?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Actually, they have done well.
Come here, stand.
Oh, I should stand here. Yeah. Actually, I don't have much to say on the group, but just to appreciate for their job. Actually, they have summarized the narrative and solution focused therapy very well. So they did a great job. It seems like they were much prepared. Of course, it's not such perfect, but at least on their own side they did very well. So it's just a matter of appreciation.
Okay, so we are waiting to hear from your group. If you said it has some problems, I hope those problems will be rectified by your group.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So thank you very much for today. I think we should stop there because of time. But otherwise, thank you very much, my dear friend. Yeah.